it's time for our February wrap-up. Hey guys, it's Janie. Welcome back to the Bookworm Buddies. Today is my February wrap-up, and again, I did really well. I ended up reading 15 books, and I DNF'd one. I'm going to start with the one that I DNF'd. I started at the end of the month. It was like the 26th of February, and I'm like, oh, plenty of time to finish this book. So that book was Dead at First Sight by Peter James, and this was for my D for my A through Z challenge. And I got to like page 100, and it just kind of flopped. I love UK authors. Like, I've been reading so many UK authors, and they're always so good. They write so well. So I'm like, oh, this one's going to be great. And it started out, I'm like, oh, short chapters, lots of dialogue, and then it just went kapooey on me. The gist of the story is that there is an internet dating site that is based out of Germany. And so, you know, people are going after these people that they see. They're like, oh, this is a great guy, a great match for me. The only problem is these people that they're seeing on here is their identities were stolen. And that's not actually the person that they're talking to. They're talking to somebody else. They've got the name, and they've got, you know, whatever. And so these people that they're internet dating start asking them, oh, you know, my mom had an accident, I need the money, or I need to fix the car, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And so these people are giving the money, and they're falling for it. And I guess the gist of the story is they're trying to figure out where this started, who's the head honcho, and yada yada yada. Well, I don't know what happened. I opened up the book the next day, and it just, too many people. There was just too much activity, too much going on, and I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. And I'm just like, I can't focus on this book. I don't know what's going on, and yeah, it just completely changed. So this one was my DNF, and that's okay. Yeah, that is Dead at First Sight by Peter James. Okay, so let's put these in the order that I have them on in my book. The next one was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Oh, guys, I love this book. This one is a story of this woman who was in prison, and she finally got out, and she goes back to her hometown. She wants to reconnect with her 4-year-old daughter, but the parents of the father won't let her have anything to do with her mom. Because does it say it on here? I don't know if I should say. Well, there was an accident, I'll just say that, and she went to prison for it. And they just won't let her see her daughter. They won't let her connect. And then she meets, what's his name? Ledger. And Ledger is the only one that thinks she's worthy, and he tries to help, and he's very close to her daughter. They have this bond, so she figures that's going to be the most help, and that's the gist of the story. I loved it. I cried. I laughed. It was great. I rated this book 5 stars. Okay, the next one we've got here that I read is Jane Eyre, and this, of course, is by Charlotte Bronte, illustrations by Dame Darcy. I did a full review on my channel on this. I will link down below if you guys want to go see that video. Jane Eyre is one of the, she had a rough upbringing to start with, but it made her a stronger person. And I just really hated the way the men disrespected women. And you know, and I knew that going in. You know, I knew that's how it was going to be. But I didn't like any of the male characters. Even when I watched the movie, I didn't really like the male characters. But like I said, I have a full review. I'm not going to go and review this whole thing. This book was okay. It moved along okay, and I think the reason for that was because of the illustrations in this book. I ended up rating this 3 stars, I think. Yes, I rated it 3 stars. This was a huge accomplishment for me, considering that it is a classic, and I don't do well in classics. But my husband bought me this book because I loved the illustrations, and there's a lot of great illustrations in the book as well. And I think that helped me get through that one. The next one was Verity. I also did a review on this on my channel. This was a fantastic read. This is a thriller book. The thriller was great. The creepiness, the disturbing parts were great. And the ending sucked for me. I couldn't wrap my mind around why the ending was as it was. The gist behind this story is that you have Lowen, who is a struggling writer, and she runs into the husband of Verity, and she has a meeting with them to finish out Verity's series, because Verity was in the accident and she can't finish the series. So Lowen's going to be her ghostwriter, and she goes to the house, and she's just got everything, all the manuscripts, everything she would need, all that at her disposal. The only thing is that she comes across the manuscript, and it is an autobiography that Verity was writing, and she was pretty much appalled and freaked out about reading this autobiography. And so she was kind of on edge about that. And that's the gist of the story. Nobody knows about this manuscript, only Lowen. And then the story goes on from there. And it was fantastic, man. I was just zipping through this book, and I got to the ending. And I wish I could just spill the beans, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ruin it for other people that might be reading this book. So yeah, I didn't even give this a rating. I can't give this a rating. I can't do it. And I was really disappointed. It felt so unfinished for me. And I was just hopeful that maybe there was going to be like a follow-up book, you know, another book in the series or whatever, but I doubt that. So yeah, Verity by Colleen Hoover. Okay, the next one. Okay, the next one I'm going to have to put a right here. Was Once Upon a Dream, and this was by Liz Braswell. This is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, and I unhauled the book, and I actually already took it to the bookstore and got credit on that book. It was okay. It was a little bit better than As Old as Time was. I still rated it a 3 star. The thing about them is it's like you're reading the actual story, and there's just one little twist in them. And I used to think that I wanted that whole series. It's put out by Disney Press, and they're called The Twisted Tales. But I took this one, Once Upon a Dream, and As Old as Time to the bookstore and got credits on those. So I already unhauled that. Like I said, it's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. The other one, As Old as Time, is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Like I said, it's the normal story, pretty much, and there's just a twist in it. That one was, what if Sleeping Beauty didn't wake up? And in the story, you're inside of Sleeping Beauty's dream, and then there's the outside of the dream. So you got 2 timelines running right there. So yeah, that's what that one was. Rated at 3 stars. I don't think that I'm going to read the rest of them, so I already unhauled them. The next one, again, was 6 months later. This was by Natalie D. Richards. I was really excited to read this book. This girl is in her study hall. She falls asleep, and then when she wakes up, she's lost 6 months of her life. And I had all these ideas in my head of what happened. None of them were correct. But I'm not going to tell you what the end result was. It was a little predictable in some parts. It was a little draggy. I don't think I would read the book again. I have other books by her that I want to try, so we see how those go. But this one was just okay. I rated it 3 stars. The next one is on my Kindle. It was always with me since it was February is the month for lovers. I wanted to read a couple romances. So this one is by Barbara Freethy, and this is a story about these two young kids who were at this camp and they fell in love. And she had this locket that she had from her biological mother, and it ended up missing, and she blamed him for it, and he said he didn't do it. Well, he got thrown out of the camp because they thought he was a thief. Years down the road, she goes back to hometown where this camp is to help out her aunt who broke her leg. She's going to help her in her antique shop, and then he also comes back to help open the camp back up again. It's all broken down, dilapidated, it needs all kinds of new things, and then they see each other, and the story goes on from there. I rated this one 4 stars. I thought it was a really cute romance. I really enjoyed it. Again, like I said, it was on my Kindle, and it was a very quick read. I would probably read something else by her. It was a good romance. The next one that I have here is The Midnight Library. I thought that I was going to DNF this book. This is by Matt Haig, and I was so excited. This popped up on my Goodreads feed, and I was so excited to read it because it sounded fantastic. But it wasn't that way. Like, there was a lot of great quotes in here, a lot of great prose. It was very poetic. I mean, it flowed okay, but then it was just doing this. It was just up and down, up and down, up and down. And I didn't like it. It didn't keep my attention the whole time I was reading it. The story of this is, this girl, Nora, is just at the end of her rope. She's just really depressed, and she takes her life, or what she thinks she took her life, and she ends up between the life plane and the death plane, and in between is the Midnight Library. And when you land in the Midnight Library, you get to see all the regrets you have and all the different scenarios you could have chosen. So you get to choose a scenario to go to see if that one makes you happy. If it doesn't make you happy, you're yanked back to the Midnight Library, and you just go through each and every one of them. One thing I can say about this book is I did love the ending. The ending wrapped up beautifully. That was the highlight of the whole book, really. This one I ended up rating 3 stars. I'm probably not going to keep this. It's probably going to go in the unhaul pile because I will not read this book again. It was just too much of this, and yeah, it was very disappointing. Okay, the next one we got here is a reread, and I was trying not to do rereads this year because I have so many books to read, but I did a reread of Bird Box because my niece wanted to read it, and she wanted to buddy read it. So this is by Josh Malerman. This is like one of his best books that he's got. Everybody probably already knows what the story is about this. Is people see things, it makes them go mad. They want to kill the story. They have to go out blindfolds on so they don't see it, and that's their way of life. And then you got Mallory, who is trying to make it to a safe place. So she leaves the home she's in. She gets in a boat with a blindfold with 2 of her kids. And most of the story is her on the boat. But it does split itself. It does split the timeline. So there's a part where it's present and she's on the boat and she's trying to get to the safe place. And then there's the past where it all began. The whole story started. So those are the 2 timelines. It makes it kind of nice because you can kind of match it up. I liked the character. I loved the story. I think it was fantastic. And now I want to read Mallory, which I do not have, but I plan on getting it. This one I rated 4 stars. If you haven't read it, it's great. And then I watched the movie as well, but of course the book is better than the movie. The next one I read was Ask the Passengers. This is by A.S. King, and I loved this book. I think I was doing a currently reading and I was talking about this. You've got this girl who, she's not sure of her sexuality, and she can't really talk to her parents because her mom is very high up in society and she would frown down upon it, and then her dad is like, hey, let's be friends kind of guy. He just kind of, kind of thing. So she's just stuck and confused. So she goes outside and she lays on this picnic table that her and her father had made. and she looks up in the sky and waits for an airplane, and then she just shoots up personal questions. And somehow, some way, a person on that aircraft gets the thought in their mind, and it totally changes their life. And I just loved the plot of this. I just loved that, first of all, which is the reason why I decided to read it. And it just, I loved her. I loved everything about this book. I rated this book, I think 5. Nope, I rated it 4 stars. But this was just, it's fantastic. If you want a nice, kind of airy read, it's not real heavy. It's very light. But you will feel, I can tell you that, because I did. But yeah, this is a great read. I rated that 4 stars. Okay, and the next one for me was Zoe. This was for my ex. I was scrabbling for an ex. So I read this one, and it's so not my type of read. It's werewolves and vampires. It did go really fast, so I liked that part of it. And that's really all I have to say about it. I think I only rated it 3 stars. I mean, it could have been worse. This is by Sarah C. I don't even know how to spell her name. Rothfulley, I don't know. But yeah, and of course there's kind of a triangle in there with her and a werewolf and a vampire who's trying to keep her safe from the werewolf, and then her friend, and that's the story. It's about werewolves. Anyway, so the next one I read was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I loved it. I waited so long to read this book. I can remember when this book came out and people were just hyping, and I still hadn't bought it. I bought it like a couple years ago. I finally got the book and just now read it. It's so much better when you don't read it while it's being hyped up. But this story was fantastic. So you have Kath and her sister Ren, and they were like really tight all the time. And it was time for them to go to college, and Ren was like, I want to go off to party and meet boys and socialize. So she didn't want a room with Kath. The only thing Kath has that she can grasp onto is her fan fiction that she writes about another book that an author put out. She writes about Simon, and she's got tons of hits, and nobody knows about it but her sister, and her sister used to help her write it. And that's pretty much the gist of the story. She's got a roommate whose boyfriend at the time is always there, and she helps him out a little bit, and that's all I'm going to say. So this was really great. I did 5 stars, I think, on this one. Nope, I was wrong. 4 stars again. But if you've not read this one, I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed Landline by her that I read a couple years back. And I still have Eleanor and Park to read, and I think I have one other one. But yeah, I was not disappointed at all by this book. Okay, the next one I read was 7 Days, and this is by Alex Lake. Oh my gosh, you guys. I saw this come up on my feed, and I got it on my Kindle that day and said, I've got to read this book. This book was fantastic. It was a 5-star. This is a mystery thriller, more thriller than anything, and there's this girl who has a 2-year-old son, and in 7 days, he is going to be 3. The only thing is she doesn't throw him parties or buy him birthday gifts or cakes or anything because she's trying to save his life. The reason behind that is she was abducted at the age of 15, and she's been stuck down in this man's basement for 12 years. She had 3 children. The first 2 were taken at 3 years old, and now she's got her 3rd child, and she needs to save him. And that is the story. And I read that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to read this book. And it was fantastic. Alex Lake is probably a new favorite writer for me. He is the UK, so I'm probably gonna just have to get his books on Kindle, or I ordered several though from Second Sale, I think it was called, is the place. So those should be coming, but I can't just go into like Barnes & Noble or a used bookstore and find them. So yeah, that was 7 Days by Alex Lake. The next book I read was Homefront. And this one is by Kristen Hanna. You guys know what I said about this book in my Let's Talk Authors. Kristen Hanna is a very engaging writer. She will keep you just tied to the pages. If you're a contemporary reader, if you don't like contemporary, then it might be a bit much, but they are emotionally heavy books. On this one, you have mom, dad, 2 kids. Mom is in the army, and they get called over to Iraq. It's during the 9/11 phase in our history, and she needs to make like everything is fine all the time, and it's not, you know, while she's overseas. Her husband's not very supportive of her decision to even be in the National Guard. And then her oldest daughter is having issues with it. She's withdrawing from her mother. And I felt like her daughter and her husband were just overly crude and rude to her. And I really hated that. But this book just made me feel I had to put this down a couple times to pick up another mystery that I read. This was 5 stars, and it was fantastic. And the book that I was reading along with that was called Murder by the Book. This was a cozy mystery. It was so enjoyable. I rated it 4 stars, and this one was by Lauren Elliott. And I was just looking for something that I could pick up after having to put Homefront down for a little bit. And this one was a story about a bookstore, and the mystery was there where people just kept, she moved to this town, they just kept breaking into, you know, it was her aunt's bookstore, her aunt's house, and somebody didn't want her there is what they were thinking. And that was the idea of the story, but I can't say it was intense, but there was some pretty creepy parts in there. And it was overall a great cozy mystery, and it makes me want to read more cozies. Like I said, this was Murder by the Book, and it was by Lauren Elliott. And then the last book I read on my Kindle was called After Anna, and this was also by Alex Lake. Also a fantastic book. I rated this one also 5 stars. So in this one, you've got a mom, and she's got a daughter who is taken from the school. And she doesn't know what happened. She was late. Her phone died. She couldn't call the school. When she gets there, they say, oh, we thought Anna was with you. And that was not the case. So the search went on to look for her child, and she's freaking out, and her I don't want to say too much, but her mom and her husband were kind of against her a little bit, but she did tell her husband that, you know, I want a divorce, you know, we're done. And then this happened with Anna, and that kind of affected her husband a little bit and his decisions. But Anna comes back a week later, and she can't remember anything. So, yeah, it was another one I'm like, oh, I need to read that. I got the book on Kindle, and I read it, and I rated it 5 stars as well. There were some parts that were a little predictable, and that I guessed right. But other than that, it was an excellent read. Also by Alex Lake. So if you guys want a great thriller writer, he is fantastic. I'm looking forward to the rest of the books that I'm getting by him. But that's it, guys. That's my wrap-up. That was 15 books and 1 DNF'd book. I don't like to have to DNF books, but I will because there's just so many more books to read. So that is it for this one, guys. If you've read any of these books, comment down below and we will talk about it. Thanks, guys, for staying tuned, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.